Hello, hello, and welcome back to Art House Garage, Arkansas's art house podcast. Today on the show, we're talking about the new film from director Nia DaCosta and writer Alex Garland. It's 28 years later, The Bone Temple. I'm your host, Andrew Sweatman, and joining me once again is film critic Russell Miller. Stick around. Hello, hello. Welcome back to the show, Russell Miller. How are you today?
Doing great.
Russell's been on the show many, many times, but if you are unfamiliar, he's a film critic in North Carolina and makes, first of all, watches more movies than anyone I know and makes lists like crazy. So always a great person to have on a movie podcast.
Yeah, definitely obsessive compulsive when it comes to OCD when it comes to some movie related things, but always happy to jump in and talk some film stuff with Andrew whenever he's in the market to do some shows or a podcast on something that he's caught his eye or caught his interests. Absolutely.
Yes, and on that note, first of all, I so appreciate all the time you've put into this show over the years now. But I want to first say at the top of this episode that this episode marks a little bit of a shift, a little bit of a change in the format of what I've been doing with the show for a long time. So the brief history of this podcast. I started in 2018, did it for a while, then took a break, and then got back into it. And like at times I was doing it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and it's depending on how busy my life is, it becomes really hard to put out a show more frequently, especially because at the time I was kind of imitating movie podcasts that I like, which often entailed multiple guests talking about different movies and editing all that into one cohesive thing and recording stuff by myself and with guests and a lot of editing time. And I don't really have time to do that anymore. I enjoyed all that, but it also was a huge time suck. And, I took a break from this show when my daughter got sick. It's been a year and a half now almost. She's doing great now, but I haven't really found a way back in besides doing, we did a top 10 episode, top 5 episode here and there. But my idea going forward is what you're listening to now, which will be a little bit more casual, a little bit more, we're going to talk about a movie every time as we usually do. But we're also going to have a little, a more free-flowing conversation ahead of that. So we're going to see what sticks from this format, but we're going to talk about just things we've been watching lately, recent movie news that we're interested in, things that are coming out soon that we might want to talk about. We might just talk about a random movie from our movie collections and then kind of get into whatever the feature is for that week, which this week is 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. So we are going to get into 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple in just a little bit. And I'm excited about this new format. I think it'll make this easier and maybe more fun in a way, hopefully for listeners, but also for me and for you, Russell. But yeah, but it's also a work in progress and this is our first time doing it. So I'm sorry if it's awkward, but here we go. But I want to say, first of all, I'm really excited to talk about The Bone Temple because I had multiple friends recommend it to me. 28 years later, the previous film made my top 10 last year, which is like a little bit of an oddball choice. Not a lot of people had it on their list, but I really, really loved that movie. And then you in particular, Russell, texted me and said, this is an Andrew Sweatman movie. You've got to go see The Bone Temple. And I did. And then I saw it a second time because I loved it so much. So anyway, we're going to dig into all of that later. But thank you for the recommendation. But
yeah, as soon as I went to see it, and we obviously talked about the first one on the podcast when we did our top 10 of last year. And as soon as I watched that, I was like, go check this out as soon as you get a chance. I think it was later on that evening after I texted you, or maybe the next day.
Yeah, I think it was like the next
that I
day.
started texting you about it, and you were like, okay, maybe I can squeeze it in tonight. And then you went and saw it, and you were like, mind blown.
There was life before the Bone Temple, and there's life after the Bone Temple.
That's right.
I really loved it. Well, I think one thing we can do with this part of this new format is just what have you been watching lately? Anything besides that? Movie, TV, anything?
Yeah. So I watched Groundhog Day with my kids. Today is February 2nd, Groundhog Day. So I had my boys watch Groundhog Day. They love Groundhog Day, but I actually took this opportunity, we watched it, part of it last night before we went to bed, and then we finished watching the last act this morning on February 2nd. And so I took like some time to explain a little bit to them about like the hero's journey and
Oh.
how Groundhog Day is like kind of a premier example of a character arc that you want to have in like any kind of
Mm.
a really good, well-rounded movie. You want to see your protagonist change, right? Like you want to see them develop that character. Usually that comes from like the writing, but also the acting, of course, is
Hmm.
involved. You want to see that transition go from the character, you know, make whatever changes they need to make to become, a better person, or, to put away like negative aspects of their, their relationships or their personality traits and grow, right?
Yeah.
Take steps forward in the right direction. And Groundhog Day is like a premier example of that, where he's just kind of this jerk, self-centered, egocentric, weatherman, and
Yeah.
he goes through this event that I think we've talked a little bit about, or we mentioned it on the podcast before. Like, it's not really Groundhog Day isn't really about why it's happening. Like
Mm-hmm.
the focus isn't on why he's going through this. It's that no, all we know is that it's happening to him, and how is he responding to those events. And at first, he is just reactively like gathering information about it, but then he starts gaming the system, right? And he uses it to steal and, just like live a fun and party type of lifestyle, and, getting girls, and just living
Crashing
large.
cars. Yeah.
Yeah, but then eventually, like, he that wears out its welcome, and he realizes this isn't anything meaningful or valuable, and eventually he just like kind of, goes into like depression mode in the second
Hmm.
act and starts trying to end it all,
Oh, that's when he's
until he
crashing
has
cars.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's when he starts kind of like jumping off buildings and jumping into a bathtub with a toaster on. And that's when he really kind of like walks Rita, the love interest in the film, through what he's going through, and explains to her that he knows everything. And she tells him, like, well, I don't know, Phil, maybe this is a good thing. Sometimes I wish I had, lifetimes, or just ages to get to know things, and it changes his perspective. And he begins to grow in the last third of the last act of the movie, and become the type of person that she would want to be with, right? He really begins to develop the character traits that she is looking for in a man, just like helpful, kind to strangers. And the growth that takes place in that last act is really, really cool. And so I'm like talking to my kids through all of this and helping them to understand, that hero's journey, and just like what makes Groundhog Day a great film to me. And I think they mostly kind of grasped it.
Yeah.
But that's one of the great character arcs from cinema, as far as
Yeah.
my favorite films of all time.
Yeah. I have a lot to say about that. Actually, I love Groundhog Day, and it's my my most striking memory of it is, so I was an English teacher in China for a year. Basically, I did that for a year, and we would watch movies occasionally in class to like help them practice their English and stuff. But Groundhog Day is a movie I
Mhm.
would show them, and because it for one thing, it's like there's no real adult content to worry about. It's like pretty much all
Sure.
ages appropriate, and then because it's repetitive, they would hear some of the same things over and over. So it's like learning English. It's gonna sink in a little
Mm,
bit.
Yeah.
but it's probably the movie I've seen the most in my life, actually, because of that. Because I would sit in the back like grading papers, but ultimately I would just watch it every single time. So I'm watching it like 3 times in a day, and it's so
That's
repetitive.
right.
So it seems like I'm watching it 10 times, But I do love that movie so much, and I think what you're saying is right, because like I think maybe the first time I watched it, I was like trying to crack the code. I was like, oh, so what was it that made it stick or whatever, that he didn't
Yeah.
loop again? But you're right, it's about like that growth, and that I, I I used to talk about how I feel like cinema is spiritual in some way, and really what I
Yeah.
think it's because when you watch someone grow, I think growth is a spiritual thing, like growing as a better person or whatever. And I think
Yeah.
when you watch that in a movie, it's like, oh, this is the point of church. Church is supposed to make you grow in this way, but like sometimes
Hmm.
watching Groundhog Day makes me feel like I'm growing in that way or whatever.
Oh,
So yeah, I think that's a
cinema can
cool.
be a medium for that for sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. So I used to sell a T-shirt that said "Cinema is spiritual." I think maybe I still do. I'll check the shop. But anyway,
Nice.
but yeah, I love Groundhog Day. Yeah. Did the groundhog see his shadow today? I haven't.
He
Do you
did
have?
6 more weeks of
Ugh,
winter.
great. That seems right. We just had a snowstorm like
I was
crazy
going to
here.
say math checks out on that one.
Yeah. Yoish. Well, that's a great pick. And yeah, when I set this date for recording, I didn't even realize it was Groundhog Day. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I have been watching lately a few things, but the main thing is I watched the movie F1. I was kind of trying to
Oh
watch the
yeah.
Oscar nominated things, and you know, I didn't I didn't super love it, but I liked it well enough, and it felt. I'll say too that I was watching it like with friends. We were pausing it for bathroom breaks. People were chit chatting, so it wasn't like I was locked in a theater.
Mm,
For one thing, I'm sure the
okay.
sound and stuff would have been incredible on the big screen, so I didn't
It's a
get
little
that.
bit better in IMAX. Yeah.
Oh yeah, did you see it in IMAX?
Yeah, yeah, I get to see it.
Nice.
When they released it at first, I didn't go see it, but then they brought it back for like
Yeah,
a week or something, and I was like, oh, okay, fine, I'll go. And
yeah,
yeah, it was pretty good.
yeah. I think it's solid. It feels kind of formulaic, maybe. Like I wasn't
Oh yeah,
surprised by much of the plot, I will say, but again, it wasn't like the most
yeah. I mean,
conducive environment for watching. But also, I don't know. As far as like, there's only one more Best Picture nominee that I haven't seen yet, but like F1 is my least favorite of all the ones I have seen by pretty far.
yeah,
Just
it's
that, like
definitely
I think
down
all the other ones
towards
are
the
great, and
bottom
this
of
one's like,
the list.
yeah,
Yeah, it's it's no Hamnet, it's no Marty Supreme, it's no
yeah,
yeah, it's one of the lower tier Oscar Best Picture nominees for sure. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I still had it around my top 20, like 2019, 2021. It fell
yeah,
somewhere in that range because I had a
yeah,
good time. I mean, the editing was
yeah,
great, the sound work. I mean, it definitely had some good technicals worked into the filmmaking.
yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
think if it because often they'll bring all the Best Picture nominees back to theaters, that might be one that I could go see on the big screen and like kind of lock in a little bit more and get the big
yeah.
speakers and all that. But yeah, that was the main thing I watched. Other than that, I've been watching. I've talked about this a few times on the podcast, but over the last few years, I used to be the biggest snob about reality television, and a lot of people listening probably feel that way about it. But I've really gotten into it. I've been watching The Traders, and man, that's a lot of fun. Traders UK, actually, I like even better. That's all I'll say about it. But our friends have kind of gotten us into it, and I'm like, when's the next episode? I'm dying to watch it. So if anyone out there likes The Traders and you want to message me about it, I would love that. But there you go. That's what I've been watching lately. Let's talk about the Oscars. We're going to talk about a couple of news things. I'm going to pull up the Oscar nominees. But yeah, did you have any kind of general impressions from what was nominated the other day?
Yeah. I mean, there was some good stuff. Oh boy, they went crazy for Sinners,
Yeah.
despite the fact that it didn't make either of our top 10 lists. The Oscars just like lost
Seen,
their
yeah.
minds over Sinners. Yeah, I mean, and again, both of us appreciated the film. I think we
Yeah.
both
I
had it
like
in
it a
our top
lot, in fact.
15, just
Yeah.
not our top 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Ryan Coogler got in for Best Director,
Hmm.
and Jordan got in for Best Actor. I mean, Delroy Lindo made it in for Best Supporting.
That's pretty cool.
I was pretty tickled to see Delroy got his Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
Long time coming, but I'm so happy that he made the final five. Yeah, a lot of good nominations. A lot of them were pretty expected because I follow a few other
Yeah.
podcasts that talk about Oscar nominees. But yeah, there's definitely, even if it was a bit predictable, some good nominations all around. Begonia,
Yeah.
your Begonia made it
I
in for Best
love
Picture,
Begonia. Glad that's up there.
and yeah,
Was
a
she
a
also,
lot of
yeah,
them.
Emma Stone for Begonia. Happy about that as well. Yeah, I think my general impression was like, wow, Sinners really went hard. And I like, again, I really like Sinners, but I was so surprised it's like got what a record number of nominations.
Pour
But
one out
Sinners
for
also,
Clemens.
yeah, I was bummed about that. That was my one thing. I'd love to get Jesse
Stone made
Plemons in
the
there.
cut, but yeah,
Yeah,
Jesse missed the boat.
yeah, because we talked about how that's basically a two-hander. So I would think he would be
Yeah,
up for leading. But yeah, we've got Timothy Chalamet,
and he
Leo,
was so
for
good.
one panel. Yeah, he was incredible in that. I don't know who I would knock out of this. I haven't. The one that I haven't watched from the Best Pictures is Secret Agent. So I'm planning to watch that
uh,
soon. So and he's nominated
yeah,
Wagner Moura. So
yeah,
that I think that's it. I still actually
he's
haven't
great.
watched Blue Moon either. I need to see that with Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, Hawk's
But
good. Hawk's solid.
lots
He
of
was my
one
runner
battle
up to
after
Clemens,
another.
and
Yeah.
yeah. Go
If
ahead.
you had your way, so I guess of the Best Picture nominees, which did you have highest on your top 10?
Sentimental Value was my number two film of the year,
That's
so
right.
that was,
Yeah.
and you had Hamnet as number one, so
Yeah. So I guess I'm voting for
that would be
Hamnet on
your
everything.
best picture vote.
And definitely Jessie Buckley for
Oh yeah,
lead actress in that.
she's probably front runner right now, so all eyes are going to be on her. She'll almost for sure win the BAFTA.
Mm,
And if she takes the SAG actor or actress award,
hmm
yeah, she'll be firmly in line
Kind of a shoe in there. Yeah.
to win an Oscar.
I was very happy to see.
It's in the middle of March.
Yeah, I was just looking
Oscar.
at that. I think we're gonna have a little friends over kind of thing. I don't know, plan
Yeah.
something, but I was really happy to see Renata Reinsva for Sentimental Value as well. So I think anyone
Yeah.
who's seen any of her movies, she's not like a household name, right? But anyone who's seen her is like, wow, she's great, and so I'm glad she's getting some Oscar love.
Yeah.
Finally, it feels very much
Yeah. That is
deserved.
awesome.
As far as what will win, probably One Battle or Sinners, right? Is that
Yeah.
what
I
you're
still
seeing as
think that
far as the pundits?
I think that One Battle is still kind of in line, even though Sinners overperformed and got so many nominations.
Mm-hmm.
Nominations don't necessarily mean everything because look at like the
Yeah,
Power of the Dog. Power of the
yeah.
Dog got like led in nominations the year that it came out. I think was it either 11 or 12. It had more nominations than any other film. It led the way. I'm pretty sure anyway.
I think that's right.
But
And then it only ended up getting one or two.
it only walked away with Best Director, which is
Yeah,
weird. Like
yeah.
only thing that it won. But Coda picked up the screenplay. Coda picked up the
Oh, right.
Best Picture and Best Supporting Actor. So yeah, that's just because a movie is nominated the most doesn't mean that's always in line for the win.
Yeah,
But I think it's pretty competitive. But I think pretty much everybody in Hollywood has kind of set it like locked in mentally that this is the time to reward PTA and that
I think so.
Paul is going to get his due. He's just been making amazing movies for so long now. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would be really shocked if he missed director or best picture. So
I would certainly be happy with either that or Sinners winning, but I definitely One Battle of those two is the one I had the highest ranked and all that. So
had
anyway,
a
we
little
shall
bit of a
see
preference
what
for.
happens. Oh, also happy we both loved in Sentimental Value. The other sister, Inga Ipsdotter Lilias, is nominated as
Yeah,
well. So I
she's
love seeing that.
competitive to win. She was
That was
great.
great. Oh, and Amy Madigan from Weapons. Not a total surprise, but still a little surprising, maybe. I mean, she won the Golden Globe, right? I
Yep,
think
she won the Globe and the Critics' Choice. No, did she? Did
she won
Madigan
something.
win? Yeah, she won the Critics' Choice. Did she win? Who won the supporting for the Globes? That is a good question. Um, Globes.
And while you're looking that up, the Oscars are on March 15th. The Ides of March, Sunday at 6 p.m. Central.
Okay, yeah, Tiana Taylor did win for
Mm.
One Battle, and then yeah, so yeah, it's possible that the supporting actress
Oh, yeah, that was Critics'
race,
Choice. Yeah,
yeah,
that could
it
be
could
fun.
go anywhere. Like they could go in any direction. The Oscars, Madigan won, Tayana is one. It's I would say it's likely that the BAFTAs would go for like could be either, but probably Ibstotter the
Mm.
will take the BAFTA. So yeah, well we'll see. The Oscars will have some interesting
Yeah.
categories this year as far as who they reward with
Speaking of,
the
first of all, Tiana Taylor's incredible in that movie and so great. And
oh
I
yeah.
sent you this the other day, but any listeners who have seen One Battle After Another, she hosted SNL the other day, and there was a really funny sketch about One Battle After Another action figures. So look that up on YouTube. I'll link it in the show notes. But yes, definitely worth the watch. Let's see. I'm gonna make a note here for links to put in the notes, and I'll put SNL sketch. Well, yeah, Oscars are coming up March 15th. We'll see what wins. I'm sure we'll comment on it on the show maybe afterwards. But
Oh yeah.
I thought we also might look briefly, moving on to the next thing, what's coming up from Criterion. I love getting the email every month. It's like, here's what's coming out in April. And there's a couple cool things. First of all, Life of Brian, which is cool. I just finally watched that. It's been like 2 years now, but I had never seen it, and I watched it on Easter just to be a little bit sacrilegious. I don't know, but I think it's getting a 4K because it already had a Blu-ray. Let me see. I'm looking at the Criterion website. Yes, coming into 4K. That will be exciting. Trouble in Paradise. I've not seen. Gilda with Rita Hayworth. I have also not seen. Unfortunately.
Ooh,
Have you
great
seen Gilda
film.
before? I need to watch that.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen everything in Rita Hayworth's filmography. I've seen a few of them though, and she's freaking great. Rita Hayworth, Gilda's great. I'm trying to think of the other couple ones that I've seen. Movie about heaven. I'd have to pull that one up. It's been a few years since I've watched it, but yeah, there's some great classic
Nice.
Rita Hayworth movies. I think I've got most of her filmography on digital.
Then let's see, Point Blank, starring Lee Marvin. I am aware of that movie, but I can't remember. I think it's a gangster movie. Yes, and I think it was already in the collection, and now it's getting 4K upgrade as well. So that sounds
Oh
cool.
yeah, yeah.
It's cool how a lot of these Eclipse series are now coming to Blu-ray because forever they were only a standard DVD. So it's Eclipse Series
Mm.
48. I don't know any of these films, but it's Kinuyo Tanaka directs, and they are The Love Letter, The Moon Has Risen, Forever a Woman, The Wandering Princess, Girls of the Night, and Love Under the Crucifix. Haven't seen or know anything about any of those, but the Eclipse series is those cool little box sets that they do. So I'm glad those are getting more Blu-ray releases. And then there's a new trilogy, the John Singleton's Hood trilogy, Boys in the Hood, Poetic Justice, and Baby Boy. That's a really cool one. I actually haven't seen any of those. Boys in the Hood has been on my
Yeah,
list forever,
I don't think I've
but
seen any of them. Yeah.
that's a cool set because I think at least one or two of those were already on Criterion, but not as a set, I think. So that is cool. And then the one that you will be most excited about is Resurrection from Bygone that
Uh,
you were a fan of, and I
yeah,
still
yeah,
haven't watched, but that's getting a Criterion Blu-ray as well. So
yeah.
yeah, I
I'll
wanted to
get that
mention
for
that.
sure. That movie's something else.
Yeah, it's
It should
one.
be hitting theaters. If it's not in theaters now, I know they were releasing it pretty soon.
That could be a cool one to talk about. Well, the next thing on my little news to-do list here was actually to say, what are we going to do? So if we do, the idea with this new format of the podcast is to record regularly every 2 weeks or something like that. I think we're going to start with every 2 weeks and talk about either a new release that comes out in that 2-week period, or if there's nothing super compelling, we could talk about an older movie that we wanted to watch and talk about. So I thought we might look at see what's coming ahead, and we could talk about it right here on the show and decide what we might talk about. I have the list here. Things are coming out this Friday, the 6th, February 6th. First of all, Dracula, the new Dracula from Luc Besson, is like the main thing, which I'm kind of interested in, but I don't know. How do you know anything about that movie, or do you care about it?
I'm not sure if that's the same. There was a Dracula movie that I kept hearing about.
It stars Caleb Landry Jones as Dracula, or Prince Vladimir, and it's Luc Besson who made the Fifth Element and Leon the Professional, which I've actually never seen Leon the Professional, but semi.
No.
It's got Christoph Waltz in it as well.
Okay, yeah, I don't think that's the film. Yeah, there was another Dracula movie that released last year. And
yeah,
I don't.
There was Nosferatu, and then there was a Dracula, and now there's another Dracula.
I think I think that was a different one, because I was hearing that movie was wild as hell. But I don't think this is a different one. So yeah, I don't know anything about this new one.
That's sort of the top build thing as far as what I was looking
Dracula,
at.
A Love Tale. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Seems interesting. Luc Besson is an interesting director. So that's an option. There's some stuff that's like, I know that you've already seen, that was like screeners that are now coming to theaters, like My Father's Shadow is coming to theaters. So we can talk about that theoretically.
Number 9 movie from last year.
I haven't watched it yet, so that'd be a good excuse for me to watch it.
That was great.
Pelion is coming to theaters this Friday.
I will be watching that.
I'm really excited to see that. There's actually, I don't know if it's coming to Little Rock in the theater, but the Cinema Society is doing a special screening of it this Wednesday. That is February the 3rd, 4th, the 4th. So today's Monday.
Are you going to go, or that's up in the air?
I don't know. I want to, but we usually have a thing with our friends every Wednesday night, so I'd have to skip it. But I really want to see that, and because I was just looking and it doesn't look like we're going to get it otherwise. But if I go to that, then that should be the movie we talk about, maybe.
I'll definitely be making it a point to watch that.
Yeah.
If I'm sure it'll be shown in Charlotte here.
Yeah, if it doesn't, then I'll watch it. I guess I'll wait for streaming or whatever. But hopefully I can go on Wednesday. The President's Cake is also hitting theaters. I know you watched that one.
That was excellent. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I had hoped to watch it. Scarlet, which was on my list, I think at number 10, the anime. I keep seeing the trailer for it, actually, when I go to see Bone Temple. I saw Bone Temple twice, and they showed the Scarlet trailer, which is the anime Hamlet riff that I really, really liked. Surratt is also going to theaters, and I haven't watched that. And that could be a good one.
That's all. If you get a chance to go to the theater to see Surratt, that movie has, I think I mentioned in the podcast that our top 10 of the year podcast, like that movie has an OMG moment that was probably like the biggest kind of shock moment of the year. Like it was just like, oh
that would be a good one to do. I don't know if it's coming to Little Rock. Experience. If it comes to Little Rock, I'll try to go see it. But if not, I do have the disc from Neon, and we could talk about that. But that's all.
Experience is where it's at. If you get a chance, that movie is the big screen with the sound will just take that movie up a few. I wish I had gotten to see it in the theater, but that's the premiere experience for that film, to have maximum impact value. That's all I'll say.
I'm gonna glance at the IMDb and see if it's coming to Little Rock at all.
It's got a lot of sound work, kind of thumping beat. Think soundtrack of Challengers, type of
Ooh,
like oomph, 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 where there's a lot
yeah.
of like dancing and partying in the first act, where these like ravers kind of get together in the desert of, I can't remember where it is, like Tunisia or somewhere. Um, and so there's like a lot of cool sound work, and like the soundtrack is pretty awesome. But some of the things that happen toward the end of the film are just like blow your mind.
I definitely got to watch it one way or the other. It doesn't look like it's coming to Little Rock to the theater. So that maybe
Yeah,
if
the
we do that, it would be a disc watch.
neon
But
title.
that's all this coming weekend. The following weekend, we've got Cold Storage, which I've heard of. It's like a Joe Keery and Liam Neeson situation. I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, I've heard of. And that is starring Sam Rockwell and directed by someone, Gore Verbinski. I don't really know much about it. A man from the future appears at a Los Angeles diner with an urgent mission to recruit the exact mix of disgruntled patrons needed for a one-night, six-block quest to stop a rogue artificial intelligence from destroying the world. Quite a log line, and I think it's like a comedy. That could be interesting. Also, that week is Wuthering Heights, which I am.
The new Emerald Fennell film.
Yeah, I feel torn about. I don't know. The trailers aren't really doing it for me, but I should probably
I will go
see it.
see anything that woman puts on the screen.
Honestly, that's probably
I'm
the buzziest of
ticket
all of these
is
that we should probably do.
Yeah, the ticket has already been punched. She's got like Promising Young Woman was my favorite film of whenever it came out,
Yeah,
2020, I think.
from 21
I
maybe.
think it
Yeah, I'm
came
not
out
sure.
technically in 2020. That was my number one film of that year. And I wasn't quite as high as Saltburn. It felt like somewhere outside of
Yeah,
my top 10, somewhere between like 11 and 15 or something, if I remember right. Saltburn was a lot of fun and, twisted and weird. I actually got to see Saltburn at the Chicago Film Festival in
oh yeah,
22, and Emerald Fennell came out on the stage and talked about the film and did
nice.
like a Q&A afterwards. So yeah, it was cool to like,
Yeah,
experience that movie and then hear her get to talk about it for a few minutes. But yeah, a big Emerald Fennell fan. I'll go see anything she wants to make.
I
She
feel the
really
same
just
way.
like,
Like, yeah,
yeah.
I love both those films
And
too. I should be more excited about this. I guess I don't know. I think it's
yeah,
because
I'll reserve judgment until,
yeah, it just
until
looks
she
like it's playing
completely
as
starts
like
derailing.
a big steamy romance, which is not exactly what the book is, right? I haven't read it in so long, but I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see.
I'll
But
leave it in
yeah,
her hands and see what she wants to do with that material. See what directions. Probably some twisted, jacked up shit that she'll figure out and like
I'm sure
take completely,
it'll be
in like some
off the
wild
wall.
directions or something.
Yeah.
But I'll be on board for
You couldn't have two more beautiful leads, right? So I guess on that alone, I should
it.
probably go see it. But okay, well that's the things. I guess I'm leaning towards Wuthering Heights actually at this point. We can keep talking about it after this, but
Yeah.
that's probably the most buzzy movie that's coming in the next couple weeks anyway. But all right, we can wrap up the news portion of the show. And now I thought we might do a fun little thing that I got this from another podcast. It's a podcast about video games where they just go through their collection and pick a random thing, whether they've played it or not. But we're going to do that with movies. So right now I have a spreadsheet of all of my, it's actually just my physical movies. I have one somewhere for my digital movies as well, things that are purchased on iTunes and wherever else. And I know you have a huge digital library that at some point, if we put yours in a spreadsheet, we can add yours to the mix here. But
Yeah. My digital library currently stands at like 3,400 films.
good God.
Yeah.
Okay, this is actually a spreadsheet that I made like 2 years ago too, so this is not totally up to date. Eventually, I'll have an up to date version of this, but there's 530 things on here. These are physical Blu-rays
Oh,
and
okay.
DVDs that I own. So I'm going to go to a random number generator between 1 and 530, and we're going to see what it pulls up. Number
Nice.
180. Let's see what it is.
All
It
right.
is. Wait for
Probably
it.
somewhere in the EFGH range.
It is part of the Martin Scorsese's World Cinema Project #1. It is a film called The Housemaid, directed by Kim Ki Young. I'm guessing you haven't seen this. True? I have not seen this.
Yeah, no, my Scorsese filmography has quite a few holes in it.
Well, and these are like
I
things that in the Scorsese World Cinema Project, they're not things he directed. He just like is curating underseen world things from all over the
oh,
world. And so it'll say like which
he's
country
pulling
it is.
other titles into
Actually, we're
to
on
bring
video.
attention.
If you're seeing the video of this, I have the disc right behind me. Let me go get it, and we'll one moment.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I know Scorsese is a big fan of
All right.
classic
This is my
cinema, like Red Shoes and a
yeah.
few other titles. He promotes like a lot of like classic cinema.
Yeah. I love he's like a real champion, a real evangelist for cinema. So this is Martin Scorsese's World Cinema Project Volume 1. I think there's 4 or 5 of these now. It has
Oh,
Tuki
nice.
Buki. I know that was the one that I've like, oh, I've heard the name of that. I've not seen it, but that's part of why I got this one because I know people like that movie. Tuki Buki from Senegal from 1973. A movie
Hmm.
called Redes from Mexico in 1936. A movie called A River Called Titus from India and Bangladesh. Dry Summer from Turkey.
Hmm.
Trances from Morocco, and The Housemaid from South Korea in 1960. And I'm going to pull out the sort of visual aid
Oh,
portion if
great
you're
shouting
listening to
out
the
some
audio.
international cinema.
There we go.
That's
There's The
awesome.
Housemaid. That's the little image on the box. And there's not. Oh, there's a booklet separate. Let's just see if there's any information about this. Uh, so I guess the point of this segment is to like talk about a random movie we maybe even not even heard of, but um, give us an excuse to learn something new. And also, if anyone has seen it, you can send us a message and tell if it's good or whatever. But let's read the log line. The log line's not on here. It's on the back of this. A torrent of sexual obsession, revenge, and betrayal is unleashed under one roof in this venomous melodrama from South Korean master Kim Ki-young. Immensely popular in its home country, when it released, The Housemaid is the thrilling, at times jaw-dropping story of the devastating effect of an unstable household that an unstable household has on the domestic cocoon of a bourgeois, morally dubious music teacher, his devoted wife, and their precocious young children. Grim and taut, yet perched on the border of the absurd, Kim's film is an engrossing tale of class warfare and familial disintegration that has been hugely influential on the new generation of South Korean filmmakers. That sounds really good. I will
Yeah.
have to watch that. And
Looks like
it's
it might be in black and white. Is it in black
I
and white?
think maybe so. Yeah, it looks like the image. So
I'm
it's from
seeing
what year did I say? 1960. But like this, the
1960.
little image here seems black and white and like color graded. Maybe I can't
Yeah,
tell
I
if that's
pulled it
just
up
the.
on IMDb and it shows a still um, that's that's in black and white. I'm pretty sure it must be.
Well, there you go. This is just the kind
Yeah,
of cinema discovery that I hoped would happen on this segment of the podcast. Perfect. Yeah, I think
yeah,
it. I'm looking at it on the Google as
yep.
well, and it does look like
It's got
it's
to be in
black and
black
white.
and white.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep, sure is.
Some striking imagery. It looks like lots of good close-ups in these. Just Google image search. Looks like it's maybe also streaming on Criterion Channel for people who have the streaming service.
Mm.
I believe it
Rent
is.
or
Yeah.
buy on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. There we go. Maybe one day we can. This would be actually a cool series. Like when there's a slow time, watch a couple of these from a box set, and then talk through
Yeah.
them. There you go. That I think is a good place to end the segment. And now we are going to take a short break. And when we come back, we will talk about 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Okay, we're back. And let me make a quick note of something. And then, we're going to get into our feature presentation 28 years later, The Bone Temple. I think first we're going to talk a little bit about the series as a whole, and especially the previous film, 28 years later. And we'll also want to note that we are going to have a spoiler-free portion of this discussion and then a spoiler portion of this discussion, because the third act is a lot of what I want to talk about. The very end of this movie is very exciting to me. And so we'll talk about some of that stuff in the spoiler section. But listen ahead. If you haven't seen it, you can still listen until we get a little spoiler warning in a minute. But okay, so this is it's a strange series now because it was never, I thought it would just be a trilogy, right? 28 days later, weeks later, and then years later. But then no, years is going to be its own trilogy. So it's going to be 28 years later, the Bone Temple, and then presumably a third film, which seems to be set up by the end of this film. So now it's going to be a series of 5, with the end 3 being its own sort of trilogy. Very interesting, and I think kind of unusual in I can't think of any other series that are set up quite this way. But I really like that they are doing these, because I think initially a lot of horror movies get schlocky direct to DVD sequels, right? So you hear a lot of horror series coming back, or The Exorcist has how many sequels that are how many sequels, and then how many of them are worth watching. It's that sort of thing. But I think that so far I'm really enjoying what they're doing with this. For one thing, no one was clamoring for another 28 Days Later. It's like a 20-year-old film series. It doesn't feel like a cash grab right there. And really Alex Garland is writing these and is like doing some really interesting things, which we're going to talk about. But remind me, you have seen all of them, right?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen Weeks. Long time. I watched Days not too long ago, probably within the last year or two, and just to kind of refresh, because I knew they were bringing the series, or bringing at least a new updated Danny Boyle and Alex Garland were going in for at least another round. And so I put Days in, probably about a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half, when I first heard about it, about they're making a new one. But I didn't put Weeks in, so I can't remember that film very much at all. I think pretty much everybody would agree that's probably the weakest link of all the films. But yeah, and then I really enjoyed 28 Years Later from last summer, and now The Bone Temple, both top tier zombie apocalypse films, whatever you want to refer to them as.
Yeah, that's interesting because I hear people say, "Oh, they're not technically zombies." I mean, it's a zombie movie, right? But then actually, in The Bone Temple, somebody uses the word zombie at a certain point. I was like, and I kind of didn't clock that the first time, but then I rewatched it, and it's Jimmy Crystal says, "All this zombie shite is happening now," and he uses the word zombie. So I thought that was interesting. So it's the rage virus, and they're different than most zombies because they're fast, and and in this latest one, it digs into like what is actually happening to them, which I think is a really interesting way to go with that. But yeah, I love 28 Days Later. The first one I always say it's my favorite zombie movie. And it still is. I had watched it several times, like in high school, college age, and then didn't until like last year rewatched it, and it was like, this is my favorite one ever, and I was almost afraid to rewatch it. What if I don't like it as much? But I still loved it so much. And then 28 Weeks Later, I think I've only seen once, but I was looking at the IMDb and I forgot the cast is really stacked. Actually, it's got Jeremy Renner for one thing. Rose Byrne is like the female lead in it. Robert Carlyle, Harold Perrineau, who's from Lost. You recognize him from Lost. Idris Elba is in it.
Garland didn't write that, did he?
Did Garland write Weeks? He did. No, he did not. Written by Rowan Joff, Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, and Enrique Lopez Levine.
Okay.
And I was just talking about how horror movies often have cash grab sequels. Weeks kind of feels like that. It's maybe a little better than that, but it has Imogen Poots in it. It has Idris Elba. It has a crazy cast looking back. And so if you haven't seen any of these, essentially what's so great about the first one is that Cillian Murphy wakes up in a hospital in London, and London is empty and abandoned. And there's this really great sequence where he's walking around the city, like, what is going on?
Yep.
And you find out
You
that,
think Will Smith and I Am Legend just like kind of cruising around the streets in New York, and it's just barren. Yeah,
yeah,
like same concept of just like nobody,
yeah,
and
he
he
eventually finds
and he has no clue what happened. He has no clue what's
Mhm.
going on.
And puts it together eventually that there's a virus that's killed most people. People evacuated, et cetera, et cetera. Naomi Harris is the sort of one of the other survivors. That's sort of the second lead, female lead, I guess. And it also has Brendan Gleeson in it. He was so great.
Yeah,
And I think one of the things I like about the first one is that it obviously is a great scary movie, but it also has so much humanity in it. Like there's this sort of found family situation that happens in the middle of it, and it's really lovely, and like there's like warm fuzzies in the middle of this, and then so it's like, oh, there's something we want to protect, and then there ends up being,
things
as in a
slowly
lot of
fall
horror
apart.
movies, it's like
Yeah,
and like The Walking Dead, like the whole thing is like the people to actually be afraid of are not the zombies, it's the other humans. And like, it
yep.
kind of is the same situation there. And then we won't have to talk about the end of that, I guess. But then in 28 weeks later, basically the idea is that the island of Britain has been quarantined. I think at the end of 28 weeks later, it spreads beyond England. Like it ends with, oh, the virus has exited England. But then at the
Just
beginning of
getting
28
off.
years later, it retcons that entirely and just like, oh, they've contained it back to Britain. I think that we're just going to keep the idea
Yeah.
that it's just on this island, which is important for what they're doing with these last two movies. So yeah, let's talk about 28 years later, which came out last year. I was completely surprised by this movie. I rewatched some portions of it because it does tie really directly into this one. But essentially, it follows a young boy named Spike. So it's been 28 years since the virus, decimated everything. And so, what's so interesting about these, I think, is like what would society look like if it's like just a few survivors amongst this, and like how 28 years later, how are they coping and living? And I think the two movies, the first one and then the Bone Temple, go in some different directions with what people are doing. But like the first one is this sort of coming of age story for Spike, and he doesn't have a great relationship with his father, but there's like an island that there's like a causeway or like I can't remember the word for it, but like it's when the tide's high, you can't get to the island, but then when it's low, you can walk across. So that's how they've been safe from the zombies. And there's a whole situation with his mother who's very ill, and he wants to go find this supposed doctor, this mysterious doctor
Yeah.
played by Ray Fiennes. And we don't need to spoil that movie, I don't think, for this discussion. Maybe when we get into spoilers for the Bone Temple, we can then talk
Okay.
about
Yeah,
spoilers for
that's
this
fine.
too.
Yeah,
But it
because
goes, yeah.
I was going to
Go
say
ahead.
one of the things that like is really fascinating about this pair of films are the themes that Garland is interested in discussing via
Mm-hmm.
the lens of a zombie film, like a
Yeah.
zombie film or an apocalypse film, and those are really what like make the film so interesting. Other than just like a you know zombies chasing people around, just ripping them
Mm-hmm.
apart and blood and guts everywhere, which is it's fine. Like that's zombie movies. If that's your thing, there's definitely some action sequences in both films where you'll get a little of your blood and gore,
Yeah.
but also like some different aspects of those films that Alex Garland is interested in having some discussions about some interesting themes, and he uses the zombie apocalypse as like a framing device, and digs into some really interesting stuff in both of those films. Yeah, I mean, I guess once we get into the spoilers, we can kind of crack them open a little bit because that's really where the meat of these films is.
Yeah.
Some really fascinating stuff going on.
Yeah. And I think that maybe that's a good point to move on into this latest film, 28 years later, The Bone Temple.
Mhm.
Right off the bat, something that's a little surprising about it is that Spike was very much the protagonist, this 12-year-old boy of the previous film, but he's really a
First
supporting
film, yeah.
character in this. And Ray Fiennes
Yep.
is very much the lead. It's like his movie.
Yeah, he
Um,
takes center stage. And
yeah.
Fiennes was good in the first film. I mean, but he's just not in that much of it.
Mhm.
Whereas
Yeah.
he really gets center stage and really
Yeah.
he is just like legitimately great with like you got to watch it again. You got to watch it for a second
Yeah.
time just the other day. And Fiennes is doing some pretty wild work, but yeah,
Absolutely.
he is pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, this movie gets crazy, and he's so interesting because you see him in something like Conclave, and he's like this very prim and proper sort of gentleman, right? But of course, we've seen
Yeah,
him be Voldemort before too. Like he can do the sort of crazy stuff, but this is really out there with where this goes in
yeah,
the end, which again we won't spoil, but
yeah.
yeah. But sort of the basic setup, I guess, is that we meet him in the previous film, and he has created this bone temple, and we learn that he's a doctor, and that he calls it an ossuary, which
Yeah,
is like
it's like a
catacombs is an
honoring
ossuary. Yeah,
honoring the deceased because obviously it's a zombie apocalypse. A lot of people have either gotten the virus or have just outright like been killed,
yeah,
and and so he, I guess without spoil, yeah, like so basically finds character without treading into the spoil, and you probably see it from some of the imagery either in the posters or in the the trailers, that he has created what is like a bone temple where he has a way of taking human remains and like steam cleaning them. Basically he has like some sort of a machine, like a
yeah. Like
big metal container, and he's able to like remove the flesh. And so he's created this, what you call, it's like a sanctuary or a memorial for like all the people that have passed away, right?
yeah,
And he's got these massive, like, I don't know how tall they are, 40, 50 feet tall, like structures of just human bones that he's erected, as a remembrance for this event.
yeah. And I think it works great as, first of all, like a setting in a horror movie because it's so creepy looking.
The production design is incredible.
Yeah, it's really great. And there's so many great shots in this movie of the temple itself and like time lapse
Yep.
images and stuff, so that I really loved.
Moving through
But
these
it's
huge columns of bones
yeah, just like
makes
walking
for some
between them.
really kind of gripping shots
Yeah,
as the film kind of explores this set piece that they've created for
yeah.
Fiennes' character.
And it's also this way, it's like you learn this about him really in the first one, but then as this goes on, that he's doing this as a way, like honestly, it's honoring the dead and like this event that's happened, and also like he does not differentiate between an infected person and a non-infected person, right? In his temple. So like any corpses that he finds, he will add them to his temple. And it's this, it ends up being this really kind of this virtuous thing about him, that he is
Yeah,
like, these are still humans, and like wants to honor everyone equally. And that really plays into this as, again, we don't get into spoilers, but like what this movie sets up, first of all, is he is there in his bone temple, and he's maybe getting a little, well, after the events of the last film, I don't know, he seems like he's maybe getting a little bored with it or something. I want to talk about the music later because that plays into this too. But he becomes friends with an alpha zombie, an alpha. They're called the alphas in this, which I didn't realize the alphas are not around until years later. I think the first years later movie.
yeah. I wouldn't say friends.
Right. Well, it's like kind of
Yeah,
right. That's what's
like
so
they,
interesting
they
about it.
they've established like yeah, I mean like they've established because there is no communication
Right.
that's verbal because
Yeah.
well, okay, I
Yeah.
won't say anything
Well,
else
what we
about
can
that.
say about the beginning of this is that
Yeah,
he has these like morphine darts that he shoots at
that's right.
the
And
infected, so that to protect himself. He also covers his skin in iodine, so he looks like he's orange and red. But
yep,
basically, this alpha that he is named Samson, which Samson's also in the previous film, that he realizes that Samson enjoys being shot with his morphine and is like using
yep,
it sort of
and basically is
recreationally.
kind of
Yeah.
like getting accustomed to the high, the chill factor of the drug, right?
Yeah.
Like, so the morphine like calms him down, and he's able to like talk to him, even though the zombie, or the alpha zombie, whatever, doesn't communicate back to him.
Yeah.
He seems to just kind of like grow accustomed to his presence
Hmm.
while he's kind of in a tranquilized state. He's
Yeah.
obviously not asleep, but he's just, he's not in zombie mode where he's just like attacking and ripping, because it does depict him earlier in the film as like just like ripping some guy's like
Yeah.
head and spine out.
Spinal column out. Yeah.
Yeah,
So gruesome. So yeah, as
yeah,
like light as this movie is on zombie action, when it's there, it hits. That's a really gruesome scene. But yeah, it's a really
those
interesting
full
setup.
tilts.
And so like, yeah, so Ray finds us talking to him, talking at him, like, how much of this do you understand anything that I'm saying? Like all of that kind of thing. But it sets up an interesting thing, and then that goes in an interesting direction. But then at the same time, we have this character Jimmy, who is introduced at the very beginning of the first the first Years Later movie. I'd forgotten how that works, but the previous film opens with a young boy being like his family dying, and he's the survivor, and like in a very unusual way that ends up playing into this film. But that's Jimmy, and then we see him, adult Jimmy, at the very end of the previous film, and then he's like a major character here, and he
Yeah.
essentially is a cult leader. He has a very particular look. He has this blonde hair, all these gold chains, and then he has
This tracksuit.
in his tracksuit, and his followers all wear the same thing and have a blonde wig, and they're also all named Jimmy, which sounds
And
so odd, and it is so
I'll
odd,
wear
but
different colored tracksuits.
yeah. And then we kind of learn that he has this whole philosophy of this apparently like this cult that he's running, and it's funny. He talks about Old Nick as the person that he's worshiping, like the god that he's worshiping, and I was like, that sounds familiar, but I didn't realize until
I was
later in
gonna
the
say,
film.
it doesn't
Yeah,
doesn't you don't really kind of get a full understanding of that character and his motivations until probably
yeah.
somewhere in the second act, where you realize, okay,
Mhm.
this what this guy is up to.
Yeah. And I think we can talk a little bit about that without spoiling stuff. But like he has like an upside down cross, which I realized is
Yeah,
he recounts the story of his father's death, and his father was the pastor, the minister at the church in their town, and that's the scene we see at the beginning of the previous film. Is Jimmy's a boy, and his father thinks that the zombies coming is like, this is the end times, so he's cheering it
the
on.
end
He's
of
like,
the
this is
world.
great.
Yeah,
And so then Jimmy thinks that his father is connected to this, and he keeps using the phrase "old Nick." And I was like, this sounds familiar. And I looked it up afterwards. That is a common, historically in England, "old Nick" is a common phrase for Satan. And it's an interesting thing. I think the etymology is somehow connected to Saint Nick, because old Saint Nick is
yeah,
really common. Satan and Santa, somehow that those wires are crossed the etymologically or whatever. But so like he's worshiping Satan, but that's not initially clear, but you kind of gradually get a picture of, and he has this
yeah.
whole system.
Once you move into the second act, some stuff happens without getting any further
Yeah.
into spoilers, that you understand this character's motivations in relation to his beliefs and like what he is interested in and capable of doing.
Yeah.
As he's running this kind of like band of what, maybe like 6 to 8 other
Yeah.
young Jimmies. Some of them
Yeah.
are real young, like probably mid teens to, like, and there's like some, a few boys, a few girls, that are anywhere from like early to mid teens to like, 20s. And he
Yeah.
just kind of runs this gang basically, and they travel around
Terrorizing
doing
people, by the way.
things, doing
Yeah.
doing certain things,
Yeah.
activities.
Absolutely brutalizing people. And it's interesting because the film opens with Spike as sort of like his initiation ritual is like a fight to the death with one of the other Jimmies. And And so when you see them first in the end of the previous film, when you first see them, they seem, they protect him. Like they seem like, oh, these are really capable zombie fighting people. And he's going to like be protected by them. But then you quickly realize, oh, they're really sinister. And now he's sort of forced to join their ranks, whether he wants to or not. But really, Jimmy, Crystal, and Ralph Fiennes become the two leads here. And when they end up meeting, that's when things get really interesting. We should probably save that for spoilers. There's a couple other spoiler-free things I want to talk about. First of all, just there's a lot going on with like religious iconography, and actually most of that is spoilery, so maybe I won't get into that just yet. But
I
like
was going to
obviously,
say one of the big themes that Garland wants
yeah,
to focus on in this film is that aspect of
yeah,
Ray
but
Fiennes' character and his beliefs
mhm,
versus
versus
the
Jimmy's,
Jimmy character's belief system. Really
yeah.
fascinating stuff.
A couple things about Jimmy. First of all, just like one of the most interesting scenes in the previous film is when there's I think he's Swedish. He's like one of the quarantine boats, and he's stranded on the island, and then he's just like, okay, now I'm in the quarantine zone. I can't leave. I'm doomed. But he has a cell phone, and Spike has never seen a cell phone before. And so just the idea that like they're so isolated from technology, from the internet and everything. And so then in this film, it's like, oh, if you meet this guy with a really strong personality and there's no organized religion, you might be much more susceptible to a cult if you're that cut off from the world, and you're in danger constantly, and he offers some sort of protection.
Yeah,
It's like it's sort of a cult,
yeah,
a microcosm of what cults do in the real world, which I thought
yeah.
that was
Or
just
like a
a smart
gang,
way to, yeah, mhm,
like join a gang for protection, just because you've got people that are around you that are capable of
yeah.
fighting off your enemies. Like safety in numbers type of a deal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another interesting thing about Jimmy's character is that, and I think I sent you the article where I learned all of this, but like he's based on a real life figure, a guy named Jimmy Savile, who was British. He had a
Oh,
very similar
interesting.
look. He had a track suit, he had gold chains, blonde hair,
Really?
and he was
Oh,
seen
interesting.
as this benevolent figure. But after he died, it came out that he was sexually abusing people left and right his whole life, and so he's
Oh,
kind of like
wow.
a Bill Cosby character figure almost. And so
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, it's having this gang that's based on him. So like British people will recognize that, I think, watching this movie, where
yeah.
most Americans won't. Because I was seeing a thing, it was like, please don't dress up like Jimmy for Halloween. He's actually really problematic. Like it works great for this horror
Yes.
movie, but you shouldn't dress like Jimmy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost like if we had like a gang that was like wearing Cosby sweaters or something like, and like they were like there's some somehow echoes of this really nefarious real life person. And in the article that I read this about, they talked about like basing it on him as sort of like, if the based on when the zombie apocalypse happened in this timeline, Jimmy Savile would have been still seen in a good light, and like he's still alive at that time, and so people didn't know all the stuff about him. So anyway, I just think it's really interesting that you could have a religion almost that has echoes of people from the real world, or from pre-zombie society, echoes of Christianity, but be it's really its own sort of thing. I just think that's a really fascinating way to take this story to into sort of religious territory. We'll talk more about
For
spoilers in a minute.
sure.
But then one other thing I want to say before we get into spoilers, and if you have anything else, feel free. But I want to talk about the music of this movie, because there's a lot of storytelling, I think, that goes
Oh, yeah.
on musically. And first of all, music's always been a big part of these movies. 28 Days Later kind of famously has a song that was really hard to get the rights to. It's called East Hastings by a band called Godspeed You Black Emperors. And it's the sequence when he's in empty London, and it's this really creepy, sort of slowly building rock song. And this band famously doesn't do anything commercial, but Danny Boyle like met with them and convinced them that he could use it. And it's like such a memorable part of the film. And then the end sequence also has a similar piece that is just part of the score, but it's called In the House in a Heartbeat, and it's just part of the score by John Murphy of that film, but a really memorable sort of slowly building kind of progressive rock thing going on. So great music in that one. I forgot that song East Hastings is in 28 Years Later, the previous film, until I rewatched part of it, but it plays over the end of the movie, um, like the last right before he meets Jimmy. But anyway, love all that. 28 years later also has it's interesting how like he'll like focus on these bands. Danny Boyle used in the previous film a band called Young Fathers, and it's not music you'd hear and think this should go in a zombie movie, but it works, and it's like this kind of bizarre punk music. Anyway, getting to this movie, Ray Fiennes has a record player, and he plays records in
Yeah.
his little bunker underneath the Bone Temple, and he starts playing. I didn't realize until the second time I watched it, but when he is part of the first film is that there's a pregnant zombie, and at the beginning of this one we see him collecting her body and making her part of the ossuary, the Bone Temple. But as he's pulling her, he's singing a song to himself, and I didn't realize it's the song "Girls on Film" by Duran Duran, which in a couple scenes later he plays the record of that, and it does a really interesting thing where it kind of focuses on his face as a particular lyric is playing, which is the lyric, she wonders to herself, how did I ever get here, or something along those lines. And we're seeing the images of his former life with his apparently his wife, and like, so it really gives you the sense of like, how did I ever get to this point in my life, like how bizarre.
Yeah.
And it's also has a sense that like that again, he's kind of feeling bored with life or whatever. He doesn't have a lot of direction maybe. He's been doing this for a while, apparently. He has so many bones. Anyway, so I liked that touch. And then there's another Duran Duran song, and I was like, this is going to be a Duran Duran movie. Actually, two more. It plays Rio. He sings Rio, and it plays a
Yeah.
little bit of it, but then it plays Ordinary World,
Yeah.
and which is just a beautiful song and
Oh
perfect
yeah.
for this movie. And like the lyrics of that song are like, searching for the ordinary world. As I'm searching, I will learn to survive. And it's like, how perfect is that for a zombie story? Anyway,
Yeah.
so there's that.
At least the one that Garland wants to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of the movie, he's having a sort of a breakthrough, which I won't spoil, but the music of it is important, that it plays Radiohead, Everything in Its Right Place, which is a song I love anyway, and it has sort of an eerie feeling too. And we get a great shot of the Bone Temple like at dusk, and it's like the blue sky, and it's playing that in time lapse. It's really cool. But then that song, the lyrics of that song are sort of about like everything in its right place. It's like weirdly hopeful that like maybe this was all supposed to happen, sort of, or something like that. And it's like at a point in the story where Ray Fiennes is like, maybe he feels like he's finding his purpose or in all of this a little bit, again, without spoiling it. But anyway, just love the music of this. I think Nia DaCosta just killed it with the direction on that front, and visually.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I haven't seen any. The only film of DaCosta's that I've seen, because she's directed a few films. She did Hedda, which I was really curious to see
yeah, I didn't see
from
it either.
last year. That was one of the movies that I wanted to check out because I heard good things about it, but I haven't. My only previous affiliation with her was Candyman, which
Same. Yeah,
the updated version from the old '90s film that I really wasn't like that impressed with, and I never got to see the Marvels. So yeah, like I didn't expect anything, to really kind of like blow me away with Bone Temple. But yeah,
yeah,
I couldn't believe what I mean, and so obviously, I think that the reason that these films are finding success, at least in my estimation of what makes a film really good or great, even is the things that Garland
yeah,
feels inclined to talk about. And so, like these films, I want to say they lean heavy on the screenplay, but what makes them, pretty fascinating to me is the
yeah,
work that Garland has put into the scripts. Danny Boyle is obviously a great director, and DaCosta finds some interesting ways to approach the story. But I think, yeah, these movies lean pretty hard on Garland and
Yeah.
the stories that he's interesting in deriving from this, this apocalypse zombie world that he's,
Mm-hmm.
creating and continuing to write more about.
Yeah. I think I agree with you to a point that, like, yeah, the meat of this is probably the writing, but I also think, I don't know, like Danny Boyle as a director is kind of interesting because he feels old school in a way, but also, I don't know, like the editing of 28 Years Later that he directed is so odd in places. I don't know. It feels like a Danny Boyle movie. And he's a director I have seen
Yeah.
most of his films. Whereas Nia
Yes.
DaCosta, I'll say the one thing that I liked the Candyman movie a little bit more than you did. It sounds like I don't remember much about it honestly, but I do remember some of the visuals, and I think that she does
Yeah.
have a good eye for visuals, and I think that it's like especially
Yes.
like
Yeah.
sort of the in sequence in the Bone Temple, like
Hmm.
that was one thing on the page, but she had to do a lot of work to make that work on the screen, I think. So I
Yeah.
want to give her some props for that
Yeah.
for
I,
sure.
I won't discredit the cinematic language that
Yeah.
she's interested in speaking. I would be interested in if she had any work in adapting the script for Candyman. No, that was wow. Jordan Peele worked on the script for
I
Candyman.
think I
I
remember that
thought
was a
that I
Jordan
heard he
Peele
was like
thing.
a
Yeah.
producer or something, but he was one of the. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
DaCosta
so does Nia
was
DaCosta, yeah.
credited. Does have writing credits for Candyman.
Well, I just
So
noticed on her
Peele,
IMDb too, she did a short
yeah,
of Candyman before that. I wonder if she directed like a short, almost like proof of concept or something. Oh, it's the
interesting.
animated trailer for the film. It's so one of the things in the Candyman remake is that, or reboot, whatever it is. There's a lot of this like silhouette animation stuff, and it looks like this
Hmm.
short that's listed on IMDb is just like a teaser that uses a bunch of that animation, which is another thing
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that. But it's got some visually striking stuff in there too, and all the stuff that has to do with like race and the police and stuff, which the original Candyman did too. Anyway, I'm a fan
Oh,
of
okay.
Candyman, but
I was going to say you talked about the original. You like the original. I haven't seen that
yeah,
one,
I
but
like
you
it
definitely
better.
said that you.
But
I was going to say you said the new one is definitely not as good as the original.
that is true. But
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I do appreciate Nia DaCosta's work on it, and I think she did a great job with this. And it feels in a way more traditionally directed. I don't know, based
Okay.
on that's a weird thing to say and maybe not accurate, but like Danny Boyle's sometimes his editing is so frenetic and it just feels um I don't know. It feels like he's a little more out there with some of his directing choices. He's a genius and I think they work, but like this feels a little more
Yeah,
traditional,
it might
what
depend
you'd
on like the
expect.
source material too.
Yeah.
Like the editing for Slumdog Millionaire, for instance, is really it's propulsive and it's got a great energy to it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, like depending on what material he's got to work with and how he works his style of filmmaking and editing into that. Some work obviously better than others.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Well, I was just looking over my notes to see if I had anything else non-spoilery to talk about. I just had a note here that like so like the and that song, "The Ordinary World," the end of it is "I will learn to survive," and at one point it edits the music to where it really draws that out to like draw attention to that. So I think it is
Yeah.
intentional. Sometimes I feel like I'm being crazy, like digging into the lyrics of songs, but I think it is intentional.
Oh, for
Let's
sure.
see, religion, etc., etc. Yeah, I think most of this is going to be spoilery stuff. Oh, this is an interesting thing, and I'd forgotten. So, like, one thing, and I'm not just saying this to be crass or whatever, but it's actually interesting, is that in this world, often the zombies, because they're just people, right? Like all zombies are, but they're just a lot of them are naked, and there's just like naked men and women running around in this, and like they're
Yeah.
dirty. Whatever. Some of them have clothes or whatever, but the character Samson that we see often super naked, right?
But
And there's like
naked.
full frontal nudity. But and I forgot this until the second time I watched it. But like after we first see Samson and we see him in all his glory, right? Then we see Ray Fiennes in his little bunker, and he takes his clothes off, and we see him
Yeah.
full frontal fingernails. Like, what's the point of that? But I think it is important because it's another way to say, like, these are the same. Like, these are humans that are sick in
Yep.
some way, and he has this, like, he's taking his Hippocratic oath to an extreme of what can I do for these infected people. And then when I rewatched parts of 28 Days Later earlier today, I realized it also opens with Cillian Murphy full frontal naked in a hospital bed.
Yeah.
And so I think it is like just how vulnerable humans are. And like, I think that sometimes people talk about nudity being gratuitous, but I think it's actually important in these films. So anyway, I
Yeah.
thought that was interesting.
The context is certainly, yeah. I mean, in the context of the film, it's not, obviously, like, DaCosta isn't like exploitatively like
Mm-hmm.
displaying this, but it's just kind of like the I don't want to say like a natural state, but certainly for the zombies, like, they don't care. Like, they've reverted to like a primal state
Mm-hmm.
of existence. Like, without we're going to get into some religious stuff here, but you think Adam and Eve, right? You think
Yeah,
of Adam and Eve, and like that idea of like early human existence where, at best you've just got like some cloths or whatever.
right.
You're unless you're like in severe weather, what you're wearing, like your attire, you're not concerned with. You're concerned with, how am I gonna eat? What am I gonna eat next?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need to use the bathroom, I need to have shelter, and I need to reproduce. Like, those are the only things that are working at a primal level in all animals' lives, right? Like, you
Yeah.
eat, sleep, and make babies. And so I think some of that is obviously like incorporated into that concept of the way that the zombies are depicted. Like, that's just not on their to-do list. Make a tire for myself,
Yeah.
but also bringing in the Ray Fiennes character of, these are all just humans, and in that way the film shows the Ray Fiennes character, which, what's his name in the film? I'm trying to remember off the
Dr.
top.
Ian something.
Ian, that's right. Yeah, Dr. Ian. He treats them as equals. Like, again, in the construction of the Bone Temple, but in the way that he approaches human and zombie life. Like, he treats them on the same plane. And the movie does the same thing. Like, DaCosta does the same thing with the way that they are represented. Like, she tries to kind of give that balance of like, these, even though they're mindless creatures, these were humans at one point. These were actual people. And, well, we're going to get into the spoiler section of what Fiennes does and his interactions with
Mhm.
these zombies in just a second. So I'll shut up.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and let's go ahead and do that. Let's take a short
Transition.
break. We're gonna take a short break, and when we get back, we are going to talk about spoilers. So if you have not watched it, this is a good time to tune out. So after this ad break,
Go check the movie out and then
we're
come
going to
back.
spoilers. Yeah. All right. Okay, we are back, and one more time, we are going to talk spoilers now for 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. So if you haven't watched it, turn off the podcast and go watch it. Okay, yeah, go ahead and say you were on a roll there, but stopped yourself. Keep going. What do
Yeah.
you
So
remember?
so basically, like, yeah, the Fiennes character, he gets into what we alluded to earlier, like almost like a peaceful coexistence. Probably would be a better way
Mm-hmm.
to frame it, more than like a friendship, because
Yeah.
he doesn't communicate. Like, he speaks to this alpha male zombie, whatever you want to call it, the Samson character,
Yeah.
that has grown accustomed to him and will go to him for like these, like he uses a blow dart and shoots the Samson character with I guess what's morphine. I think he says he has
Yeah.
morphine.
Yeah,
But
he
as
says
the
later it's
film,
like a mixture of morphine and whatever else,
yeah,
some other things. But
but
yeah.
he has a limited amount of it. He's
Hmm.
scoured the countryside for like 10 miles and he's gotten all that he can get. And so he has a limited amount of it. But so basically, Samson has been coming to him for like these drugs, and they really calm him down. And so the Fiennes character will speak to him and interact like, like he's talking to him like he would a friend. Eventually, after
Hmm.
some amount of their sessions together, they even have a dance like
Yeah.
session, or where at least where Fiennes is dancing.
Yeah.
But slowly as their relationship kind of evolves, Fiennes explains to him, and he doesn't know if Samson is understanding any of it. Hey, I'm going to run out of this, and
Yeah.
so our sessions are going to either end by you killing me, or
Yeah.
this, you won't be able to keep coming back to me for this hit. And so that was, but because he's kind of prodding the Samson character, like asking him and talking to him intelligently, because he's really trying to decipher if there's anything going on behind the eyes of this creature that
Hmm.
has been infected and that has, just like murdered countless humans, like, can I break through? Can I get through to him? And he uses, at some point towards the end of their relationship, he uses some sort of cocktail that he has theorized may help to start sparking
Hmm.
the mind of this creature slash human, like, in hopes that he will be able to wake him up from this infection, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of woven into the end plot of the film.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. So what I was saying earlier about he's maybe felt like he's found his purpose is like, can he actually, he felt like he has a
Cure
breakthrough. Can he actually cure
cure the
this?
disease or
Yeah.
cure
And
the
so
infection.
first of all, I love the moment early on. He says, first he talks about why he named him Samson and all that. And then he says,
More
how,
religious reference.
yeah, is how amazing would it be to hear you speak a single word? And I was like, oh, I
Yes.
bet he's going to do it later. And then it's in
Yeah.
that scene where he's explaining that the drugs are going to be gone soon. And he's like, so, and he's like, is there any way you can consent to basically euthanizing you? Another kind of
Yes.
piece. And he's like, the needle's about to go in. And he says, moon. And such a great moment. He's just like high as a kite staring at the moon. He says the word
Yep.
moon. And then that's when he's like, oh, and now I can maybe formulate a plan. Another thing I didn't realize until the second time I watched it, he talks about, you must be seeing something that's not there to it. Like I've seen that the infected attack a baby. Obviously, a baby's
Yep.
not really dangerous. You must be seeing something that's not there. That's psychosis. I can try to treat psychosis. And
That's yep.
in the very beginning, that scene when he rips out the guy's spinal cord, it shows his perspective of that guy, and he has like a scary monster face. So it shows
Yeah.
a moment of that psychosis, and I'd forgotten. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But like he's seeing. There's also a lot of cool shots where it's like camera lock, whatever it is on his face,
And
but
I,
it's like
and I
blurry.
yeah, like I said, I won't give, I'm not going to give Garland the full credit. I think DaCosta definitely had some great insights into some of those,
Mm.
moments, and being able to flesh out what Garland had to work with. So I'm not, completely writing DaCosta out. So don't hear what I'm
Yeah,
not saying. I'm just,
sure, sure.
I have a lot of respect for Garland. I think the dude's a
Yeah,
mastermind
I do
and
too. I think he's like
what
one of my
he's doing
favorite
here.
screenwriters
Yeah,
ever. He
he's
just
he's
everything he
he's
touches
he's a
is so good.
genius.
Yes, I also love the sequence where Samson is then coming out of, and this is a sequence I wanted to pay more attention to. Part of why I wanted to see it
Yeah,
again. When he's fully coming out of it, he kind of wanders onto this train, and then he's like remembering being a child on a train, and then he speaks a full sentence to these other zombies around him, and then realizes he's being attacked by them, and it seems like he is still like he kind of fully regains the ability to speak. Like he seems like he is cured in a way,
yeah.
and he also is still super strong and can kill all the zombies that are attacking him. He survives that.
But he also can't be reinfected.
Yeah, exactly. So
because
like,
they're all like shooting blood on him, and like, but he's already survived
yeah,
that disease or that infection, and so now he has immunity towards it. But he's like a you know
yeah.
he's a
So
monster of a human being.
I have to think that that's where the next film is going to go, is something about the
Yes.
cure. Because even though Kelso died, Dr. Ian Kelso, even though he dies at the end of this,
Oh,
and
we haven't even gotten into that.
his work can carry on. But I want to say one more thing about the sequence when Samson is remembering his former life. There's like the
Yes.
audio is kind of in and out, and I was like, that sounds like the music from Super, or what is it, Mario Land 2, Six Golden Coins on the Game Boy. I remember that. I played that game so much as a kid. That sounds like that. And then like it just plays it as he's wandering into the train. You're hearing various noises of trains and stuff. And then we
Yes.
see when he's on the train in his flashback, there's a kid across the way playing Game Boy, and you hear another Mario. I was like, I'm such a nerd that I recognize the Mario music from that game. But I was like, that is that game. And I think it's placing it in that time frame of, because this was
Okay. Yeah.
pre
Yeah.
pre apocalypse or whatever. So
Yep.
anyway, but yeah, let's talk about the big sequence at the end with the all this. First of all, so when Jimmy, it's such a genius thing that one of the Jimmys, Jemima, or no, it's the other one, Jimmy. I can't remember. They all have a specific last name. Jimmy Ink and Jimmy
Yeah.
Shite is one of them, but it's the one that Spike is kind of friends with. Is scouting out
Yes.
and sees him dancing with a zombie and thinks he has red skin. He's in a temple of bones. This is obviously Satan, and like brings that back to like that's a genius way to construct that. And then
Yes.
when Jimmy Crystal meets Dr. Ian and the conversation they have, just the best. This is why I go to the
Yes.
movies, right?
That's right. That's right.
Mhm. Yeah, they have the.
Basically, so
Go ahead.
the Fiennes character is a scientist, like he's a doctor, and he's studying the disease, but he also has this like respect for human life. And like we talked about, treats like the zombies, the infected, and the regular people that have been killed by this is like equal. So he's approaching this with a very lot this whole world through a very scientific lens.
Yeah.
And then he finally reveals himself to the Jimmy Crystal character as an atheist. But it's once he realizes that the Jimmy Crystal character is worshiping Satan, and that is who he's following, and all the motivations for the Jimmy Crystal character are he's emulating what he thinks his father wants him to be doing. Right? He's torturing people and performing like these heinous acts on people that he encounters, while his band of hoodlums just roam around England, and they if they capture people, they just torture them and do like the
Mm,
most cruel things. Some of those things are depicted in the second act of the
yeah.
film.
Acts of
And
charity, he calls it. Yeah.
yeah, and then the Fiennes and the Dr. Ian's character and the Jimmy Crystal character get together, and man, it's again, like you said, that's some
It's so good. Yeah, because
Garland really,
yeah,
yeah, tip of the hat to you, sir.
it did. It reminded me of some of the best scenes from Ex Machina, where they're talking about sort of the philosophies of different things with AI
Yeah.
and stuff in that movie. But here, yeah, he's like, there's even a line who's like, oh, so I'm an atheist and you're a Satanist, and they both have very, both have very,
That's an
very
incredible line.
explanations for what's going on in the world that seem very logical to themselves, right?
That's
Um,
right.
and and yeah, it's just fascinating to see, and it's sort of a microcosm of like organized religion at all, and like science and religion, and how those things have always had an interesting
Yeah.
relationship with each other. And so I just love all of that stuff, and then just how great to have this very odd situation in which he is compelled to pretend he is the devil, and
Yep.
and then I was not prepared for how hard that was going to go, right? For that whole
Oh
sequence
man,
where he
it
pulls
was
out the Iron Maiden
amazing.
song, and just looks like the
What does
devil.
he
It's on the
say?
poster. Yeah.
Let's take this to an 11.
Yeah, yeah. Let's turn this up to 11. And man, he really did. And like, they have this little quasi Satanist worship service that he's
Yeah, some
obviously
sort of a
orchestrated and doesn't believe in. Um,
yeah. So the basic premise of one of the final scenes is that he is the Jimmy Crystal character uses Dr. Ian with like kind of like a threat of violence or death. Like,
mhm.
hey, you have to help me convince all my followers that I am Satan's son. And they need to keep following me and listen to what I have to say. And that I am the leader that they need to be obeying.
Yeah.
And so the Ray Fiennes, the Dr. Ian character, has to put on this performance and show as if he is Satan, and it is, I mean, it is some incredible stuff. Like,
So good.
wow,
Yeah. Ray Fiennes is great
what
in that
what
sequence. And I had the feeling like, okay, once he realizes Spike is there, that's going to change things in some way for him. And that's basically what
yeah,
happens.
things are going to
Um,
devolve into some yeah,
um,
in
but
some
then it
way.
ends up with he the little twist that he does. I need you to crucify Jimmy Crystal. That's my final command to the followers. And so, but it ends up with Jimmy Crystal upside down on the cross, and he says, "My God, or Father, why have you forsaken me? I can't hear my Father's voice anymore." And it's like all these ways that it's echoing these biblical stories, just. But it makes so much sense in this context. But I didn't realize too
Yeah,
in the opening sequence of the previous film where we see Jimmy as a boy,
yeah.
he takes his father's cross, which now he's wearing upside down. But he says he's hiding under the floorboards, and he says, "Father, why have you forsaken me?" Like that's one of the first things we hear him say
Oh
as
yeah,
a kid too. Um, anyway, but yeah, great sequence. And then Samson shows up, and he sort of hallucinates it that's Satan. Who obviously that
yeah,
would make sense. He sees him with giant horns and stuff.
yeah,
But then Samson's just talking in sentences to Dr. Kelso, which is crazy. Um,
yeah.
anyway, great ending. But then, and you didn't say anything else about that. I want to talk about the very end, and then we can kind of wrap up. We're getting close to,
Sure.
we're going kind of long, but I just love this movie.
Yeah,
The very, very end. So, like, I loved all of that, obviously. I'm just talking about how much I loved it. But then the final sequence, I was just goosebumps. And when the credits rolled, I was like, yes.
yeah.
And
You didn't know that Cillian
I
Murphy
didn't.
was going to make a return.
I didn't. I think I had I suspected that it might, but I saw a headline that sort of hinted at that, but they just said a character, and I didn't know who, and I was like, I'm just gonna pretend I didn't see that. So I was really surprised um, when we see a young woman in a little house, and then he walks in. I was like, is that his voice? And then he walks in, and so the implication that that's his and Naomi Harris is from the first one's daughter. I'm assuming, but where is she? Did she die? We don't know. But they're for one
Yeah,
thing, the conversation they're having, he's like teaching her history, and he's talking
yeah.
about World War II was partially because Germany was bankrupt from World War One, and so after World War II, the world helped Germany get back on its feet. And she was like, "Why would they do that?" And he was like talking about how like the enemies here are the ideals, fascism, racism, and all these things. And how much does
Mm,
our modern world need to hear that? My gosh!
yeah,
But then they hear something coming. They look outside and it's the zombies, and it's he's like, "Dad, should we help them?" And we see Spike and Kelly, I think is her name, the Jimmy who's now no longer a Jimmy. That's his
one
friend.
of the Jimmys. That's yeah,
Then he's like, "Should we help them?" And he's like, "Of course." And then like the music drops in from the first one, that the sequence where he's running into the house, and like the goosebumps I got from that music cue, just insane. I was so excited. So anyway, it seems like the third film in this year's trilogy is going to be focused on him, perhaps. And the way we've shifted from Spike as the protagonist to then Dr. Kelso as a protagonist to, I assume, maybe Cillian Murphy again, which is a great thing to build
yeah,
toward. And see, maybe the Cure stuff will happen. I don't know where we're going next, but I'm so excited for it.
yeah. I mean, that's the cool thing is that Garland is, like I said, he's just found some absolutely fascinating things that he wants to discuss with these zombie films. The second one, all the religious stuff that he feels like tackling and just kind of like having discussions about, and and even 28 years later, the themes of death that he really explores in some fascinating ways.
Yeah.
That whatever he decides to do with this third one, like now that I know what he's got for us, like I am fully on board. Like I was kind of like, oh yeah, 28 years later, yeah. I went and seen it. I was like, oh wow, this is one hell of a movie. Like,
Yeah.
he like Alex Garland and Danny Boyle have got me like literally like crying in the movie theater and
Yeah.
for a zombie film. And then the Bone Temple comes along. I'm just like, holy hell!
Yeah. Who
So
would have
man,
thought?
I am fully bought in, and I am fully on board for whatever Garland wants to break into in the next film. I mean, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. I was so surprised as well. And yeah, just what a great use of it. Like, this is what reboots and sequels should be. It's not cash grabs, but like, oh, I
seriously,
have some interesting ideas in this universe. And yeah, so
yeah,
I'm just a big fan of what's going on here as well. So
yeah. Like
yeah, I was looking through. I don't think I have anything else super pressing
yeah,
to say about this
the
film. I
only
could
thing
talk
that
about
we
it some
really
more,
didn't
but
kind of break into was how effectively 28 years later kind of explores the themes of death and
mm,
memories. Just to like kind of tie those themes into this discussion, and like what actually made me cry. Like I just queued it up like again earlier before we recorded. That just the like 5 minute sequence of the little boy, and he's probably like 9, 10, 11, something like that. The
mhm,
main character from the first film, Spike,
yeah,
his mother is sick, so he goes to Dr. Ian and takes his mom. They travel there, and he diagnoses her with like basically incurable cancer, like she's going to
mhm,
die. And so, as opposed to like letting her go through a painful suffering,
yeah,
she ends her life early. And there's like a sequence of them of like him holding his mom and just kind of flashing back to like
mhm,
sequences of their memories together and their life together.
mhm,
And then she leaves and he gives her like a peaceful death,
yeah,
but then he uses his like bone cleansing you know procedure on her and hands his like Spike's mom's skull to to the child. And there's like a whole sequence of the child just like processing that, and he's like, give her like a spot on this tower of human skulls that he has.
mhm,
And so he climbs to the top of it as the sun is rising, and he points the skull towards the sunrise. And just to like sit with that concept of death and memory, and like how to like grieve over the passing of somebody that's so close to you, like a mother figure. I mean, just what an incredible sequence that Garland wrote up, and an
mhm,
approach to that via a zombie movie of all things. I
yeah,
was, really, really captivated by that film. And even though I didn't have it in my top 10, I think you had it at 8, I believe, 7
yeah,
or
8 or
8.
9, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, and I had it at like 14 or 15. But just really, really interesting things that Alex Garland is diving headlong into with these films. And I will be first in line to see whatever he's got set up for us with this final film.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I don't
Punch
even
my
know.
tickets. I'm ready to go whenever it comes out. I'll be right there. But I don't think this one has started filming yet,
I
so
was
we
gonna
may have
say,
to
like, I
wait a
feel
little bit
like
longer.
once the previous one was like in the theater for like a week, I heard, oh, the sequel is coming, in a year or whatever. So I don't know what the plan is
Yeah.
or if they have one, but let me see if IMDb has any information on that. But yeah,
When it'll
absolutely.
actually hit. Yeah, when it'll actually be released.
Let's see. I'm looking at just Alex Garland's upcoming writing credits. 28 years
Yeah,
later,
well,
part 3 is all it
yeah,
says, and it
that's what I'm
says
pulling
production
out. And
unknown.
just
He's also writing the
yeah.
Elden Ring movie, which is interesting.
Mm.
But anyway, well, we will have to see what happens. I'm sure we'll talk about this movie when it comes out, part 3.
Yeah, it
But
says part three of this trilogy is now in production. It's expected to start filming in March. So the story's been written. Big surprise. He had written all three movies at the same time. Oh, and they got Boyle to direct the final one.
oh, nice. Okay, great.
Oh, okay. All right. It is on. It's on like Donkey Kong.
That's great, especially if
Yeah,
it's going to be a
Sony
Maximilian.
just greenlit the third one after the Bone Temple released. So yeah, so
Yeah, it seems like this one did pretty well.
We'll
Yeah,
probably have to wait until 27 to get this
yeah.
for sure. Probably by spring or summer.
I just found two more
But
things in my notes I wanted to mention. One, these are just like little moments I liked really quick. One is that, and it has to do with the belief stuff. So first of all, Jimmy Crystal really believes that he might be old Nick. Like he comes in, he's like, I was scared to death. Are you? He's like, you're not old Nick, are you? Like that is just so funny, but also like he really believes that. But then the Jimmy follower who is friends with Spike, I think it's
hmm
Jimmy. I think Jimmy Inc. is her name, who ends up being Kelly. She,
yeah,
I forgot this conversation. Like she's doubting whether Jimmy Crystal is really,
yep,
Satan's messenger,
yep,
but she still really believes in old Nick. And then that was an interesting thing where she was like, no, I think he really is old Nick. It must be, but like he's probably not really. I think like he's maybe full of shite or whatever she says,
yes,
but then it's like not till the end of that sequence that she's like, oh, so you're not really old Nick. Like, and so she really has this faith that is kind of shattered. Anyway, I thought
that's
that was
right.
a cool touch because you have different people reacting to different things, and like how many religions are formed because we believe in our God, but we
That's
don't think
right.
that you're the right messenger, so we're going to make our own thing.
But then you dig in a little deeper and you
Yeah,
realize, oh, this isn't all. This isn't exactly as the reality of the situation isn't as things have been explained to me that it was.
yeah. Oh,
And
and
there
how
are
great
those
too
like
that it's
wake
like
up moments. Yeah,
yeah, for sure. And I think it's for Dr. Kelso. He's having this sort of like Hippocratic Oath crisis when he's like, "Oh, your command is to go and expand your numbers and kill more people," and you can
yeah,
see like he's really on the verge of pulling the plug on this thing anyway. So
yeah.
anyway, I thought that was a cool way to put that way. Anyway, sorry to go back in time there in our discussion, but yes, part 3, whenever it comes, I am very excited for it. I think we can wrap up there. This was a great discussion. Thank you so much, Russell. I think this new
Yeah,
format went pretty well. Let us know what you think,
yeah.
anyone who listens to it. But we will say goodbye for now, and I'll read my outro.
We'll see you
So,
next time.
yeah, thanks so much, Russell, and thank you, listener, for listening to Art House Garage. We have a few years worth of episodes. You can hear those all in your podcast app of choice. Our theme music is by composer Paul Hunefeld. Learn more at appallingproductions.com. If you want to support Art House Garage, become a patron over at patreon.com/arthousegarage, or there's a link in the show notes. You can also buy an Art House Garage t-shirt at arthousegarage.com/shop. If you want to support us without spending any money, leave a rating or review in your podcast app, and that is hugely helpful. Stay in the loop about Art House Garage and the films we're covering by subscribing to our email newsletter at arthousegarage.com/subscribe. You can also email me directly, Andrew at arthousegarage.com. And of course, follow on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Just search at Art House Garage in all those places, or find links in the show notes. And that will do it for this episode. Thank you again so much for listening. And until next time, keep it snob free.